So thank you to the band and for the tracks that we buy sometimes too. And thank you to David for playing this song that Greg suggested. And before I start on the talk today, I want to talk about the law, because this is the law, the way that religious science uses it, just in case you're confused, because the other law doesn't care either. But this law gives us what we believe. And it really doesn't care. It's impartial, it's impersonal, it does the same to everyone, for everyone. And so even those people that you think of as bad or mean or whatever, they're using the same law. We just get to decide how to use it. And that's it's kind of a basic teaching of ours. And it's one that we don't spend a whole lot of time focusing on. And yet it's important to remember that the law don't care. It just does what you tell it. So we have to be careful what we tell it, because that's what we're going to get. So anyway, that's my disclaimer. So thank you for choosing to be here today. Thank you for being part of this community. We know that in this moving towards more hybrid world choice that we have, you could be anywhere. In some places, you could even be in person. So thank you for choosing to be here with us today. And today is recognized as Mother's Day. And for those of you that were online before we started service this morning, Beryl read a piece that she had written about mothers, and I'll coerce her into getting a recording of it so you can hear it as well. But back in 1870, the first person who dreamed up Mother's Day was actually Julia Ward Howe, who wanted the day to be a day of women standing up against war for peace, because she had seen so much carnage and so much battle, and she wanted us women of the world to stand together for peaceful reconciliation. And then sometime later, another woman pressed the issue again with the intention that everyone should celebrate their own mother for the gift of life and the gift of upbringing, and not so much the rest of the mothers of the world. And in 1914, when President Woodrow Wilson signed the proclamation, he recognized all mothers, which is kind of where we are now. And I know that many of us have a little bit of a twisted relationship with our mothers. And most often, this has to do with whether or not we felt cared for or nurtured by them. One of the gifts of maturing, I like to call it adulting, is that we get to work out for ourselves what nurturing means to us. And if we didn't feel like we got it when we were young, we have the opportunity to nurture ourselves in ways that are meaningful to us. And this will be different for different people. And I know there are a few remarkable people in the world that had perfect mothers. And then there are the rest of us, right? So a couple of different ideas floated up for me when I was thinking about this yesterday. One, do we consider that we're worthy of being nurtured? And two, whose job is it to nurture us? And our historical and cultural conditionings have answers to both these questions, and I think both of them are mistaken. I think the reasoning is faulty. In the Western worldview, there's a core belief about humans being inherently unworthy, which unfortunately has its roots in our collective religious heritage as people of the book, which is to say those who participate in religions that have a book, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And all of those say humans are broken. And so this is sort of buried in the back of our consciousness that humans are broken. And so we get to look at that piece of historical context and know that it lives in us, and know that that belief that humans are unworthy and require some external being sacrificing themselves to save us. I'm going to give you the punchline, and then I'm going to go back and break up the story in a couple different ways from a couple different points of view. We don't believe anybody else's sacrifice is necessary to save us. That's one of the tenets of religious science. It's also one of the tenets of Buddhism. And in our history, in religious science history, when Dr. Holmes was growing up, his mother realized that she didn't believe in hell, and she didn't believe in the literal story of Adam and Eve, or their fall from grace, or their expulsion from the Garden of Eden. And so she refused to put that on her kids. She just completely refused to put any of that religious dogma onto her, I forget how many, 6 or 7 boys. Because that piece of religious dogma has trapped so many humans raised in the traditional Western Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, and Islamic belief systems. And Dr. Holmes expressed it this way in the Declaration of Principles. We believe in the individualization of the spirit in us, and that all people are individualizations of the one spirit. And he also wrote in the same document, we believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete freedom from all discord of every nature. And this goal is sure to be attained by all. Nobody's got to save us. Nobody's got to rescue us. We are already on track to be whole, complete, and perfect. And we don't require any external impetus other than our own decisions and our own choices to work with our world and create a life of our choosing that leave us in this space of completeness. So I have 2 stories from Buddhism. Both of them have to do with the current Dalai Lama. In 1979, during a 3-month retreat at the Insight Meditation Center, the Dalai Lama gave a Dharma talk, and he had a Q&A session. And one participant at the talk asked him about unworthiness. His Holiness told the questioner, I think you are thinking or feeling that you are something of no value. That's wrong. Absolutely wrong. And then in 1990, Sharon Salzberg, a later Buddhist teacher, asked the Dalai Lama about his perception of this idea of self-hatred. And the Dalai Lama went back and forth with his translator because he didn't understand the concept. That's how foreign the idea of self-hatred or self-loathing was to him. And in the conversation with the leading Western teachers that were in the room at the time, Sharon Salzberg and John Kabat-Zinn, they tried to explain to him the pervasiveness of this self-disgust in the West. And the Dalai Lama kept asking questions and trying to understand it. And at one point, he finally said, I thought I had a good acquaintance with the mind, but now I feel so ignorant. And then the rest of his comment goes something like, how could you think badly of yourself since you are already Buddha nature? If the Dalai Lama had no awareness of self-hatred, then it's obviously, right? Obviously, a conditioned state, something that's collectively believed. And just knowing that it's a conditioned state, something that we have added on to our wholeness, opens the possibility that it can be deconditioned or unconditioned. Jared Gottlieb, another Buddhist practitioner, wrote about his practice of investigating and ultimately dismantling his own personal experience of self-hatred. You'll recognize these words because we use them too. He said, I don't have to believe my thoughts. That's especially true of self-hatred. A most effective way of applying this insight is a mantra given to him by one of his teachers called real but not true. In our language, this experience of self-dislike in whatever flavor it is part of our experience, but it isn't accurate, and it's certainly not capital T true. So acknowledging the feelings and the experience without accepting that they are capital T true makes it possible to see those experiences more accurately and to assess their validity more correctly. There's a fake Buddha quote. I thought it was a real one like everybody else, but it's not. It's a fake one. And you've heard this one before. You can search throughout the universe for someone more deserving of your love and affection than you are yourself. And that person is not to be found anywhere. You yourself, as much as anyone in the entire universe, deserve your love and your affection. This quote is likely to have been a rough paraphrase from the Udana of the Pali Canon, which goes something like this. Since it's a translation of a translation, we can only approximate, right? Searching all directions with one's awareness, one finds no one dearer than oneself. In the same way, others are dearer to themselves. So no one should hurt others if one loves oneself. So if today's talk is about nurturance, why am I spending so much time debunking the notion of unworthiness and self-disgust? Simply, if we believe we are unworthy of love, then we won't allow it. We won't make space for it. We won't give ourselves permission to experience any love or any nurturance. Finally, my second point, whose job is it to nurture us? Wouldn't it be lovely if we could all get enough external validation that we actually believed it? And if we believe that we need or depend on external validation to have an experience of our own self-worth, can we ever get enough? The short answer is no. That's the bad news. The great news is that we are strongly encouraged to look within ourselves and not to any external being, whether human or divine, to give us validation, to give us nurturance, to give us acceptance. Part of the mythology that we saddle ourselves with, and we saddle our parents with, especially our mothers, is that they will nurture us in the way we need to be nurtured. Obviously, this is a false, limiting, and damaging assumption. Those of you who are parents know you can't read your children's minds, no matter how much you want to, and know exactly how they need and want to feel nurtured and loved. And even if you knew it, you couldn't provide it, no matter how hard you tried. And since all of us were children once, we know we didn't probably consistently feel acknowledged or nurtured in the way we wanted to. Our parents couldn't give it to us because it wasn't theirs to give. They didn't have it. They didn't have access to it. So we like to think that parents always give their children unconditional love. And maybe they can for a little while, for brief moments, for spans of time. Human love is more often conditional, as much as we would like to think otherwise. And it's quite often dependent on meeting expectations and assumptions. And so by its very nature, it's limiting. So what do we do with this awareness? We own up to the truth that we get to nurture ourselves. And since we stand a better chance, still not a perfect chance, but a better chance of knowing what we need, this is actually good news. In Bill Plotkin's masterwork, Wild Mind, he wrote about the nurturing, generative adult. We've studied this book a couple of times over the years. The nurturing, generative adult already resides in potential within each one of us. What does this nurturing look like when we give it to ourselves? It's not all spa days and buying ourselves presents, although those are quite enjoyable. It's taking care of our unfinished business, the stuff that worries us or troubles us or makes us feel anxious. It's not criticizing or shooting on ourselves, thinking we're broken or needing fixing. It's owning our strengths and repairing or mitigating our weaknesses. It's doing our contemplative practices, whatever they happen to be. It's honoring our commitments to ourselves and to others. And it's cleaning up misunderstandings with others when and where we can. It's forgiving ourselves. This is a big one. It's forgiving ourselves and it's forgiving others, because we will fail, we will fall off the wagon, and others will too. And so being that nurturing, generative adult, we have the job, get the joy of forgiving ourselves and recognizing it's in our power to forgive others as well. And as we progress along this path of becoming a nurturative, generative adult, we become increasingly more self-referential, looking within ourselves for the most beneficial and beneficent life we can live, rather than looking outside ourselves for somebody else to tell us how we should live. It's also engaging with others in healthy ways, not by dominating, not by domineering, not by rescuing, not by enabling, and not by creating situations of codependence. We get to learn how to nurture our own wholeness, our own perfection, and our own already complete selves. And as often as possible, live from that place. It's a process, it's a practice, and we never completely arrive. We're always, always, always works in process or progress. So I want to repeat today's spiritual thought from Ernest Holmes and Willis Kinnear from the book Thoughts Are Things, page 20, paragraph 4. There are many mental records we can play, which are enjoyable and beneficial, but it may take a little time to discover them. The record of hate needs to be replaced with one of love, fear with confidence, anxiety with faith, guilt with forgiveness. And after a while, when our minds start to play a pattern of thought that we don't like, we discover we can automatically change it and play a more harmonious tune. We always have the capability, the possibility to choose to live a more harmonious life, to nurture ourselves and to nurture those around us in such a way that everyone is uplifted. So I want to close today with a piece from Dr. Ernest Holmes and William Hornaday from their book called Help for Today. Dr. Carmen Smith used this when she was with us earlier this year. Let us therefore light the candle of love, human kindness, forgiveness, and understanding in our own soul, and let it shine brightly. Let us not peer into darkness, troubled and concerned, because it is so foreboding and unknown. Rather, let us remain steadfast in the radiance of the spiritual light of truth within ourselves. Let us stand guard so that the winds of malice, cross purposes, ignorance, or misunderstanding will not blow out this light. Let us so live each day that the light from our candle of spiritual knowledge will forever be clear and understood, not only by ourselves, but by all with whom we come in contact. And finally, I have a very short poem by Indian mystic Kabir, translation by Andrew Harvey. Kabir lived in the 15th century and is revered by Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs. The poem goes like this. Look into your heart. It is there that Ram and Allah live. Are the Vedas untrue or the Quran? What's untrue is your darkened view. He's one and one in everyone. How did you make him two? Every man and every woman who's ever been born, Kabir says, is one of his forms. I am Ram and Allah's silly baby. He's my guru. He's my guide. Own your own nurturance first. And when you find that specter of unhappiness with the self or some need to fix yourself because you're broken, take another look. Redirect your thinking and see yourself as whole, perfect, and complete, because that's what you are. And then stand in that light and share that light with others. Do that. Bless yourself and bless us all. Thank you. So now I want to roll into the spiritual mind treatment or the prayer, the way that we do them around here. And as you know, we only pray accepting and supporting and recognizing the goodness. And if we have those self-damaging, self-demeaning, negating thoughts, we park them. They may be experiential, but they're not true. So hold on to some piece of your inherent goodness while I speak these words. I celebrate this opportunity to be in the light and of the light. I know this truth. I know this truth about love and joy and harmony and peace. And I know that each of these qualities live as me and as each beloved here. And each one steps into their experience of wholeness. More light and love and good and joy is added to the world. More great goodness is present and available for each and all to experience, to tap into, and to share. So I celebrate this joy. I celebrate this delight of gathering. I celebrate this delight of being together in community. And I know only good and more good results from this connection. So I celebrate this awareness on this Mother's Day, and I know this task of nurturing falls to each and all of us as we step into our God self, that whole and holy presence that lives as each one of us. So in delight and joy and with ease, because I know it's not a chore, I relax into this goodness and I let it be. And so it is.